In today's world of rushing from place to place and constant electronic communications, civility is often a forgotten trait. Today on Campus Conversations, we'll talk about civility and a new effort to make being civil to one another a priority in Montgomery County. Stay with us. Campus Conversations is next.
Welcome to Campus Conversations. I'm Steve Simon.
And I'm Fritzi Bodenheimer. Road rage, angry emails, loud cell phone calls. In today's fast-paced world and today's civilization, has the concept of civility taken a giant step backward? The idea of choosing to be civil is the subject of a community-wide initiative called Choose Civility.
And you may have noticed we're all on our best behavior right now. But joining us to discuss this in the most civil of fashions are Esther Newman, the Executive Director of Leadership Montgomery, and Lon Anderson, who's a spokesperson and government relations head for AAA Mid-Atlantic, the local chapter of the American Automobile Association. And great to have both of you with us.
Thank you for having us.
And in the interest of civility, I want to say up front that also, in addition to all of your great titles, we're very proud that both of you are former presidents of the Montgomery College Alumni Association at one point in your life. But today we're going to talk about civility. And Esther, I want to start with you and say, why must we have an initiative to teach people to be civil? It seems so obvious. Why choose civility?
Lon, why don't you tell them why you got involved?
Well, you know, I think no matter where you look in society, you see angry people in a hurry, as you mentioned, and think what improvements we could make if we could all take a breath and treat each other with respect. And of course, being from AAA, we do surveys all the time, and we find that drivers are very upset about what happens on the roads. And that's really just the same thing that we see everywhere else. It's the loss of civility. So I think, you know, we've now got a group of people who said, you know, we need to do something about this. Talk about something that really could improve quality of life. If we could advance civility in Montgomery County, it's a great place to live, but like so many other places, it's intense. You know, and that often means that civility goes out the window. So we've got a group of people now that are looking to see how we can engage the public and each other in conversations about civility. And that's where Esther and Leadership Montgomery come into play.
Now, Lon has taken care of for civility on the roadways everywhere. But the whole initiative, Esther, I want to come back, is sort of the name is taken from a book that has come around. We're going to be talking about another book later in the show. But a professor at Johns Hopkins University, PM Forney, has a book called Choose Civility, and it has basic lessons that just seem so obvious. Pay attention, acknowledge others, think the best, listen, be inclusive. Again, I come back to why the initiative and what is the problem that we feel took us to the point where we want this kind of initiative in Montgomery County.
Thank you, Steve. Leadership Montgomery has talked about convening people around an issue, community-wide issue. This was an absolutely perfect topic. We know that there are several communities around the country that are doing civility initiatives, and our neighbors in Howard County started one last year. And I said, gee, that really sounds interesting. That's something that we could certainly benefit from here in Montgomery County. There's not a community around that can't benefit from doing something relating to civility. So we started this Choose Civility in Montgomery County initiative. We invited people to be partners. We said, there's no charge to be a partner, like Montgomery College is a partner. It's free. All you have to do is commit to doing something relating to civility, such as you're doing with the show now, for other organizations publicizing it to their employees, in lots of just different ways to tell people, encourage people to be more civil. And we have 40 partners. We have a website, choosecivilitymc.org, and we're doing everything that we can to just get the word out about civility. Washington Post recently did a story on the Civility Initiative, which described both Howard and Montgomery counties and what we're doing.
I want to go back a step, and you mentioned that one of the things about living in this county is that it's very intense. I'm wondering how do we get to this place? Is it because of the cell phones that are attached to people's ears? Is it because we're just in a different time on the planet? How did we get here that we even need to have a project like this?
Well, it seems to me that, you know, we're under a lot of pressure. I mean, and we're all trying to make sure that we're maximizing every minute of every day. You know, we're trying to be super moms and super dads and super employees. And, you know, probably it's really not possible to be absolutely great at all of those things. They're competing. And I think that competition puts a lot of pressure on us. And we don't really spend enough time probably relaxing and trying to undo that pressure. And as a result, you know, it's kind of like a volcano. I think, unfortunately, that pressure vents sometimes. Sometimes we're behind the wheel and somebody cuts us off or honks at us, and that's the point that we break. You know, other times someone can say something to us and we misinterpret that and we have a verbal eruption. You know, but think about all of the pressures we have, and think about if we each could just step back and treat each other with respect, the way we would want to be treated. What improvement to society we could make, and how much better we'd feel about ourselves.
Absolutely.
Even on something like this, it's actually pretty amazing. But there are people who are critical of this discussion because they're concerned that this is sort of thought police, or telling us what's politically correct, or if I speak up or I object to something that is going on in my community, am I not practicing civility in doing that? So I would love to hear both of your own perspectives on what you would say is a measure of civility, not Webster's, but yours.
Respect, courtesy, consideration, just treating people politely. And people can disagree without being disagreeable. In the Leadership Montgomery program, you've been through, Steve, you're a graduate, you know, how often did issues come up during the program where people didn't agree? They were always, and it's wonderful.
Daily.
Daily, exactly. Never a program goes by, exactly. And yet, they didn't argue, they disagreed. However, they did it in a way that was civil and courteous. And it was, you know, I respect the president that said, disagree with you, but I respect, but I will fight to the death your right to say what you wish. I've paraphrased, but that's it. And people can certainly disagree. Nobody is talking about thought police. We're talking about how we treat each other. In public life, I see people sometimes attacking elected officials. There's a difference between I don't agree with what, either on the civic side or on the elected side. I've seen both sides where people are really very uncivil toward each other. And you can disagree on the issue without attacking the person.
You know, interestingly, our former governor, Bob Ehrlich, made an interesting comment at one point and said he was disappointed at what he saw was a tremendous loss of civility in Annapolis since the time he'd left and gone to Congress. And he came back, he said, you know, I used to be able to disagree on the floor with other legislators, and then afterwards we go out and have a burger and a beer together. He said, today there's this feeling that too often that Republicans and Democrats and people who disagree, they can't be friends. But as Esther said, we can disagree, but we can do so agreeably. If we can all agree that we're all working for what we believe to be the best avenue for a better Maryland or a better Montgomery County, we may disagree as to how to get there, but if we can agree that we're all working towards that same larger goal, then maybe we ought to be able to respect one another towards those goals. But we see, even on the floors of the Congress, we see some very unfortunate eruptions, verbal eruptions, where members who have very strict protocols lose it and are gavelled down. And that's a shame, because we ought to be able to discuss ideas reasonably and agree to disagree agreeably.